Beautiful thing about doing a live stream is that they make it very clear where you can end a live stream. And when you're doing a screen share and you want to end the screen share, you can stop the screen share, but you got to stop it differently. And when you're trying to stop a screen share and you accidentally press the wrong end button, guess what happens? The people who are watching we're no longer watching. So thank you for following me over here, Datalore. I screwed up. I messed that up. I pressed the wrong button. So thank you for following me over here. So we were talking about what's been going on with what's happening in and around the poll that Elon posted and made public, basically having people vote him off the island. Well, he's still going to be the owner of Twitter, right? And he's still going to be probably making decisions behind the scene, but it may very well be likely that someone else is going to be CEO. And whether or not he was being honest about the poll that he posted, and it takes it to heart, the people who voted yes versus the people who voted no, because the yeses have it, he should step aside, let somebody else lead. I don't think Tesla stockholders necessarily are disappointed in that turn of events. But this shakiness, this is the thing I really wanted to talk about most. This shakiness of Twitter and its foundation is the most concerning to creators, to publishers, to anybody who uses Twitter to connect or interconnect. It's dangerous, is what it is. It is very dangerous. And that's not something to take lightly. People use it not just for posting memes and messing around, but they use it to interconnect. And this is where the instability has become concerning for me, because you cannot build a stable foundation when you are sitting atop sand. And that's what Twitter feels like. It feels like it may have been rocky before, but now it is specifically sitting atop sand. It's standing upon sand to a certain degree. And that's why I've been as bullish as I have been with Mastodon in relation to Mastodon as a close equivalent to Twitter. And it's not a perfect equivalent. I mean, there are obviously differences. And there are many other places that you could go to, and there's certainly places that you can stay if that's where you are most comfortable. My habits have certainly changed. I hope for the best. I hope they find a leader that, if it's the case, Elon basically setting the stage of, getting voted off the island. And let's go ahead and pull that tweet up again. And I will try my best not to screw this up this time. And I apologize. Sometimes I get punchy. All right, so there's the tweet. Elon basically saying, should I step down as head of Twitter? I will abide by the results of this poll. I think he knew that more people would vote yes. I feel that he knew that, and was just basically throwing it out there so that he can say, well, I listened to the people. They said yes, so I'm just doing what they want. Look, I'm getting relevant people in the sidebar to follow. I'm not going to follow Elon Musk because, quite honestly, believe it or not, despite me talking about him right now because this is the turn of events, I'm kind of tired of talking about Elon. I joked this morning and said, who's the CEO today, because I don't want another day of productivity just blown out the window. Not something that's interesting to me. I love current events, but I'd rather focus on stable experiences, I guess, rather than just drama. And that's what Twitter has been lately. It's just been nothing but drama. I don't know what it's going to be, Marcus. I think if he does step down, it will be for good reason, certainly. And when you've already violated trust, people may kind of come back lightly, but I can tell you, I was discussing this with a few other folks, mostly makers. They said their feed had not changed that much. I'm like, well, mine has. Like, my feed is now, I'm not gonna say mostly garbage, but it's like I had fun stuff and serious stuff like interspersed. Like they were like side by side, like not side by side, but stacked one on top of the other in my feed. A lot of my fun folks have moved on. They left. Are they going to come back? I don't know. Is Elon still going to own it? Yes. Is that going to keep him away? Possibly. That's the problem. They may go and they may not come back. Forget the bleeding of users. It's the elimination of trust. That, I think, is the most concerning. I mean, yes, we could be jumping out of the frying pan and into the fire, for sure. I don't think that's going to necessarily. It's going to change things, certainly. Anytime you have a different leader, a different style, a different approach, things are going to change for better or for worse. And we just do not know. We just do not know. I totally agree. Let him focus on Mars. I had no problem with the guy. None. I still didn't want a Tesla, but I now it's like, yeah, no. And it looks like Christoph is explaining Mastodon here to Matthew. Each instance, the thing you got to understand. Actually, let me share. I'll share another tab I have open here. It is a Nicodemus's Guide to Mastodon, and what it is, I'll paste it and put it in chat for you. Here we go. Let me paste it. It's a Google Doc, and in Mastodon, or it basically explains. Let me go ahead and share it. Editing to stream. So it explains like the high level differences, the surface differences between or to Twitter and Facebook, like no ads. Like a timeline is a timeline, not an algorithmic engagement maximizer. Like it's just so it explains, right, the high level stuff, deeper differences, including Mastodon being federated, right? So instead of there being like one Twitter, Facebook, etc., there are many services, right? Servers are also called instances. So the thing to keep in mind is that the instance you join is going to have a different set of rules than another instance, right? So, I mean, the person's using Commu Social here as an example. The biggest practical minus of the federation, of course, being where do you start? That's why I pasted the in chat, at least earlier, I pasted in chat the Mastodon. Let me paste again and pin it, giving you all the links here. That's the invite and where you can find me on Mastodon. Because currently you cannot link to your Mastodon profile on Twitter. They still consider it malware. Makes you kind of wonder. It's open source too, by the way, so it's always going to steadily improve. So this document that I linked breaks everything down, like how the feeds work, the different features, how you do things, where you might do things, what's happening, what's the culture, right? All of these things absolutely matter. Absolutely matter. So this was a wonderful document that the guy put together. I'm glad he didn't put it on a blog because everyone knows Google Docs. There's a list of several instances, some related to photography, programming, art, the bigger servers. I'm on one of the bigger servers, mastodon.social, just because I was like, well, that's what a lot of people are probably going to pay attention to. It'll make sense to them. Not a big deal. So, there are different places to start, but the last thing you want to do is get caught up in the trap of thinking, oh, well, it's not like Twitter. No, it's not. It is absolutely not like Twitter. Don't even think about it. On the other side, he may have gained some users who are upset about the previous bans. Possibly, yeah, that's something that has benefited some folk, but it has also made it likely that the people who were upholding their presence and providing value back to the network are no longer there. So that's where I come back to a lot of my Star Wars folks. They're active still, active-ish, but not as active as they once were on Twitter. I mean, my feed is just different. It is just different. It's not as much. It's not as interesting to me to open as it is for me to open and follow folks on Mastodon. So my backup plan is now my primary plan. I'm building my social graph over on Mastodon, and I'll go ahead and open that here. Theoretically, I've got to be careful. I got to unpin a couple things here. Okay, so how can I do this? All right, let's do it this way. Sorry, I'm getting things staged just for you. Let's present. See, I'm my own producer here, so thank you for bearing with. Here we go. Sharing my Mastodon. This is the advanced web interface. I've got different columns set up. You can see, if you're familiar with TweetDeck, that's pretty much what it looks like, right? This is for all intents and purposes, to me, not just surface level stuff, but it is cool. Someone sculpted a Star Wars alien. See, I follow hashtags just like you can do on Twitter. Like there's really on the surface, there's no difference between what I have here and what I might have on Twitter, apart from potentially different people and apart from possibly different possibilities for engagement and different nuance. I mean, it's always going to be different. But even then, just because I've leaned in my profile, I've just passed 4,800 followers. I've been prolific. I've shared a lot because I enjoy doing it. I'm only following fewer than 400 at this point. Very careful about what I put into my feed. But I've posted, a few times. I do, and those the posts also include replies. So I've replied to a lot of people. It's a way to, kind of keep the conversation going and flowing. But advanced mode is the only mode that I can use on it. You could use the Mastodon app on iOS or Android. I don't think it's great. Ivory on iOS and the Mac is probably going to be the go-to for a lot of people. I think it's going to be a lot more intelligible than the Mastodon default app. Because remember, it's open source. So just like Twitter was like in the very beginning, it had, you had the ability to, third-party developers were writing clients for the platform. Well, they cut that out. They cut it out entirely. And now third-party clients are pretty much dead for as far as Twitter goes. Well, Mastodon is different. So, I feel, Eastman, hang on, is this the 3D printing Eastman? Oh, it is. Gonna give him a follow. I've printed, oh my God. I've printed his, this is so cool. I've printed his Vader so many times, his Vader bust. So I guess Eastman has joined the ranks. That's kind of fun. I'm looking at my notifications column, and I can break it down by like replies or people who have favorited, people who have boosted. I could take a look at like the polls that I've participated in or that I've done. The people who I'm following or the people who are following me. So like it's all, once you start using it, there's Dandrak. It's pretty straightforward. It's not that difficult. And people have, I think, made it out to be more difficult than it actually is. Now, I could also go in and add different columns, not just for, right now I've got, Seattle and Star Wars, because I follow those. I love, in fact, I could even add, and what I've done is if I push the options button, I can pin it. So what I did is pin it. I can unpin it, but I basically subscribed to it. I've added it so that in my main in my main home column, the Star Wars content shows up there. I don't have it. I don't have Seattle added because I'm like, well, I like having Star Wars in my feed, and I also have one for toy photography, things that I would, if I could do the same thing with 3D printing or what have you. So it's not as difficult as people have made it out to be, quite honestly. You do think federate's the future in this fiasco could be the push? Ultimately, I follow the people. I only joined Twitter because everyone I knew was there. Yeah, I'm a big believer in that as well. It's one of the reasons I joined Hive, because a lot of my Star Wars people were over there. But I just found that I could not, because it was mobile only and I couldn't access it by way of the web. It was very difficult to engage while I was on the desktop, and I was done. I didn't want to mess with it anymore. I mean, I may pop in, once a week or so, but not like this. I need a TweetDeck like experience for my default social feed, and Mastodon scratches that itch. For the idea of federated being the future, I believe open. I mean, the pendulum's swinging back the other direction, right? And this is the thing, is like, when you have a lot of people who they're like you, right? Well, they go to where the people go. Well, if the people don't go, you're not going to go. Well, what's it going to take for more people to go? You create value. So one of the reasons why I've been bullish on this, certainly, but let me see here. Let me open my profile. I've pinned links, or pinned, helpful information about how to do this, how to do that, using hashtags to connect with people. You can see like a ton of hashtags in some of these posts. The reason why is because that's the way that you effectively show up in search, because there's no global search for Mastodon intentionally. That's the way the network works. But understand, I'm pulling up a graphic here that's Creative Commons licensed. Mastodon is just a part of what is known as the greater fediverse. So federated media, as opposed to social media, which has traditionally been through centralized platforms, you have to go to Twitter in order to and use the Twitter experience, and and it's a private company. Well, now it's a private company, and what they decide goes for everybody, and that works for the most part, but it also causes problems, as we have seen, and especially when you have leadership of that company doing things that for some people it has tanked the experience. For others, maybe it's improved the experience. I'm more on the side of, I'm in between. I'm like, well, it has tanked it in certain respects. It's just I'm more concerned about the volatility in building a house on sand, effectively. I'm not interested. So as much as this is new, remember, I mean, I got online in 92. Nobody was online. Not nobody. Relatively speaking, nobody was online. I launched Locker Gnome. Like, if this is if this is the baseline of how many people were on the internet when I started, this is where we are today. And for the longest time, even in the beginning of Locker Gnome, this is how many people were on the internet. And then, like, years after I started Locker Gnome, it was like this, right? So the hockey stick, right? But I saw promise and potential in what the internet was here. And that's when I started, right, doing Locker Gnome back in the day, when nobody had an email address, or maybe they were using AOL, right? But it was just like, it was still down here. It was nowhere where it is today. So I tend to look at options and opportunities. Right? I guess I look at these options like an opportunity. The Fediverse, I feel, is right here. And so it's like, get it on our ground floor. Well, in many ways, yeah, if only to figure it out. I've done the same thing with blogging. I did at one point the same thing with podcasting. A lot of these newer technologies that a lot of people couldn't wrap their head around, I'm like, this makes sense. So conceivably, these different parts of the Fediverse, Mastodon is just one project in the greater Fediverse, just one. And like, there are different places where you can host video, like PeerTube, or photos, like PixelFed. Like different places inside this greater Fediverse. So I could follow, if you had a PixelFed account, I could follow that PixelFed account from my Mastodon account, because they're all interconnected, right? And you could take your account and you can migrate it to another service. You basically are in charge of it. So it's in those early days where you have to maybe use a little imagination and be willing to maybe jump over a couple of hurdles. But honestly, I don't think the hurdles are that great. I mean, if you could use the internet back in the dial-up days, this is nothing. This is easy. Unless you're used to being spoon-fed, at which point, yeah, you're probably going to have a problem. If you expect this to work like other social media, yeah, you're probably going to have a problem. But that's not what it is. Don't treat it for something like it. Don't treat an iPhone like it's an Android device, and vice versa, right? So this is, so you can see I got the Star Wars update in both of those columns. Does not surprise me. So Yeah, I watch my notifications. I've been sharing things on it. I got a ring, and I showed that off, a silicone ring. I didn't post this to Twitter. I didn't post it anywhere else. But I made sure I tagged Star Wars and Darth Vader and sci-fi and fashion, because it's kind of what it's all about. I found a funny photo of it, a cute photo of a dog, because it's Mundog. Those are there's trends that you should follow, right? And of course, people thought it was cute, so they accelerated, they boosted or favorited. Favorites are private, by the way. So there are three things. Like there's Photo Monday, Photo Montag, and Monday Motivation. So I'm seeing upward ticks on those trends. So what I'm going to do is I took a photo earlier, and I'm going to use those hashtags: Photo Monday, Monday Motivation, Photo Montag. Okay, so I'm going to do two of those. So we'll say photo, photography, because those are popular. Photo Monday and Photo Montag. I think that's is that what it is? Oh, I got to hang on. Photo Montag. And the reason why is because I believe that's German. Then, oops, I can even type beginning. Because I'm going to use other hashtags, hashtag snow in Seattle. And then I tag it all, and then I add the hashtags like nature photography, macro. Would this count as a macro? Let me see here. Yeah, it's macro. Macro photography. There are people who are going to follow those hashtags who otherwise would not see me. So say snow on the needles. Okay. I basically gave it a caption for those who are visually impaired, and I press publish, right? And then that's it. That's it. Done. And it showed up in the Seattle column because, again, I use the hashtag. So, this is not what I'm doing here. This is not, or should not come as any surprise to anybody, honestly. So either way, I'm a big believer in not pioneer is the wrong word, but being a part of that pioneering effort to see the value of where this is going, not where it is necessarily today, but where I believe it's going. Because why, in my mind, why would I wait until it's going when I have a chance to take point on putting something else out there and being direct? Do you feel me, Gareth? I'm a big believer in that. I don't look at it as there aren't any people there. I look at it like, hey, there's not a lot of activity right now. That's good. Why is that good? Well, let's talk about that for a second. I'm gonna pull up a chair. I'm gonna try to educate you here. Twitter, I've got 100,000 people who allegedly follow me. Right? I'll go ahead and turn this off because you don't need to see that. That's potential followers. I said potential because a lot of people who follow aren't going to see my tweet because it's going to get buried, or they have the algorithm turned on rather than the default time, chronological timeline. That's the number one tip for if you still use Twitter. My number one recommendation for you: open Twitter and go. This thing up here. You press that button and make sure you're seeing the latest tweets. You don't want home. Don't switch to home. You want to see the latest tweets because that way it's chronological, and there'll be less that you'll likely miss. So there's no such algorithm on Mastodon. Another big win for people who love putting things out there like me. So there's a potential of getting to millions of people on Twitter. But you know what that means? That means getting their attention is going to be that much more difficult because there's a lower signal to noise ratio. There's a lot of noise. You're competing against a lot of users and a lot of noise. So to get maybe you 3D printed an Eastman bust, right? Maybe you 3D printed this wonderful Darth Vader, right? Maybe you did this. You're like, I did this Darth Vader. It's amazing. Let me share it with everybody. And you share it, and maybe you get a couple of favorites. Maybe you get 30 favorites. I don't know, however many it is. The thing is, maybe more people would enjoy it, but they've got to compete with so much other things on that network. That's why algorithmic content usually comes into play, because it basically sees predictors of signal and says, oh, 30 people like this, therefore I'm going to show it to more people. YouTube does the same thing, right? On Mastodon, someone follows me, someone follows the hashtag, they see this. It just pops up in their feed. And they like it, great. That like is personal. Like only I know and only they know that likes. No, you can't necessarily see who likes something on Mastodon. You can see how many likes it may have accrued or favorites. You know who boosts something, of course, because they share it through their timeline. But what I've noticed in posting typically the same content on Twitter as well as on Mastodon, what I've noticed is that despite me having a fraction, a mouse fart on Twitter, oh my God, Chris has got 100,000 people, right? On Twitter, 100,000 people. Oh my God, he must, he must get crazy engagement. No, that's not how. You can look at a lot of people and they don't always get crazy engagement, relative to their follower count. Follower count is largely irrelevant in algorithmic content. On Mastodon, it does matter because it's not an ego thing, but because there is no algorithm for you to combat that that is going to populate in their feed. So despite me having 4,700 followers at this point, ish, I have typically a higher engagement ratio for the same content that I post. So the numbers actually play out in my favor. If I'm wanting to make an impact, if I want to share my experience, if I'm throwing something out there, maybe something pithy, maybe something that I find to be inspirational or something that I might find helpful. I've got like 107 shorts on my desktop that I wanted to upload for Monday Motivations. All these things add up. All of them add up. And I'm a big believer in being there before other people. I'm a big believer in showing up, not just for early mover advantage, but in many ways, there's an opportunity to be an early mover advantage. But then you also run into the trap of, I'm posting things and no one's engaging. Well, the world's not going to be patched to your door. What are you creating that is going to resonate? I mean, you can't just say, I had soup today. It's great. People care that you had soup. I've seen people post things like that and wonder why they don't get any engagement. I'm like, take a picture. Talk about it. Build a story around that post, right? The bust is awesome. It's free too. The Eastman bust. I had to set it down because I don't have there's a stand that you print separately. I printed a few of these, not as many as others have posted, certainly. Mastodon also is new. Also people have less people to engage with equals higher engagement. Fred, that's precisely what I'm saying. So you have an opportunity instead of getting, in my mind, if you've had problems getting engagement on Twitter or connecting with people, you're probably going to enjoy Mastodon even more than I do. And the reason why is because there are millions of people, now millions on a Mastodon certainly, are using a Mastodon instance, but there are millions of people, magnitudes, millions more million, you know what I'm saying, on Twitter than there are in Mastodon. So you don't have to fight as hard to be surfaced, to be recognized, to interact. Otherwise, you may very well get drowned out. I mean, this is what Fred says is absolutely true. Absolutely true. Yes, I am still vegan for life. Never going back. Ever. Not going to happen. And in case you're wondering about my health, it's awesome. Thank you for asking, not asking. If that was what you were asking, not asking. Blood work, never been better. I just took, if you're asking about my health, thank you for caring enough. I appreciate it. I just took a do-it-yourself at home colon cancer screening. So instead of going in to the doctor, you can now do mail-away kits, about $100, $80 or whatever. You've got to collect part of your own stool sample. But I'm like, well, compared to going into the doctor just to get an idea as to whether or not I have certain markers, I'm going to try doing it at home first. So I'm happy to say that I have done that. I think it would be an amazing gift to give an older man in your life because prostate health is important. Scanning for all that. I knew someone actually who was a big supporter of mine in the Gnomedex days, who he died of complications around his colorectal cancer. It's a big deal. It's a very big deal. So we've got, there are some 3D, let me, how can I do this? 3D printing. No, I just want, just 3D printing. I'm looking, there we go. 117 people. So I'm going to open this up. Here you go, Marcus. Let's share the screen again. So I've got, I opened up the hashtag for 3D printing. I mean, it's not, maybe not as active, but look, you've got people. It's active enough that you get like on average 100 people using the hashtag a day. Lost in Tech is over there. And I know you know him. Oh, look, Polyterra PLA. Kyle Davis. I should copy and paste, copy that. I don't know who this is. See, it's like unless I know who they are, I'm not like likely to give them a huge follow. But look, he's using Polyterra PLA, so I'm going to send that off to Polymaker. Someone in the community who's got a Patreon account. A lot of people who model in 3D printing have that. There's a time lapse. You can play the video in line. It's an embedded short. So there are people doing making in 3D printing stuff. 3D Professor just joined yesterday. And I know that because he followed me. It was really funny. Look, it's a cat. There are cats of Mastodon. 3D printed cookie cutter cookies. So you're going to find more and more activity in and around your favorite interest. The way to do it and the way to find it, though, is specifically, and I think Flying Purple Cow is active in the community. He followed me. He or she followed me, but I'm not sure I know who they are. I'm careful about who I follow because I'm like, well, I want a good timeline too, right? I want a timeline that I enjoy. I can't follow everybody. Someone's done a lithophane. There's 3D Professor again. So, you know, you'd think, oh, there's nobody there. I'm like, what are you talking about? If what you care about 3D printing, if you only care about 3D printing, subscribe to the hashtag. In fact, I'm going to do just that. Pin it. I'm going to pin 3D printing. It is now pinned. And I can open up settings and do all that stuff, which I'm not going to do. There's the popularity column. 3D printing is probably the best one. Tech tip. Nice. All right, let's go ahead and remove that. So yeah. Thank you for listening to this. I'm curious to know how you feel about whether or not I mean, we may disagree about the way things are going. My concern is that Twitter doesn't seem to be getting any more stable with every passing day. It seems to be just the opposite. And that's why, you know, I'll say it again, over and over and over again. That is why I'm hedging bets. And now my quote unquote Twitter is not, I'll say this, Twitter is now my backup. If Mastodon's my primary, Twitter's my backup, and I'll treat it as such. It's just the way it is. Yeah. And more people, less people, doesn't matter. I don't think the movement behind the fediverse or the idea of Mastodon is going to be going away anytime soon. So thank you for listening and tuning in. Curious to know if you all feel the same way. I'm just not. I'm worried when anytime things go in flux. It's just like this doesn't seem like a good idea. A lot of the people that a lot, not all, but a lot of the people that I trust and that I follow have already bailed or are already just, you know, thinking of their backup plans. And so that's where my head is gone. Sorry, not sorry. Agree to disagree. Good or bad, it is what it is. Elon's voted himself off the island. Well, he didn't, but he set the stage for what was likely a foregone conclusion. I love you. I appreciate you. And at this point, I'm going to leave you to your own devices, and may the force be with you always. We'll see you later.